Is that really what Tom King looks like?
Is that yes? You met him in New York.
Did I really meet him?
I'm pretty sure you met him in New York.
It's just like a line of like bald white guys. That's what comic writers are.
I mean, I'm almost 100% sure that you met him when we went to New York Comic Con.
We definitely went to Scott Snyder. I remember that.
Yeah.
I very much remember that.
He's not a bald white guy.
No.
Does he have Scott Snyder?
He's a white guy.
He has
not bald.
Has hair and can write comics.
I don't believe you.
All right, let's see. Do we have anything in the chat? Is it what you don't believe us that Scott Snyder's not bald?
I don't believe you.
You met him.
I know, but I don't believe you. Give me
Yeah, you're something, kid.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What do we got? Oh, we got some peeps in the chat. Joe's Geek Show and Taylor Pector. What's going on? Yeah, we're live. I just can you guys hear us okay? I wanna make sure that we sound all right. Talk, Tyson.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Pete.
Turns out Scott Snyder's not bald.
How about that?
Who'd have thought?
I did.
Well, can't all be
Cool.
Pete.
Taylor
No, we
Pector
can't.
says yes. I'm gonna
Okay.
trust Taylor. He's a trustworthy man. Let's see. Do I have the intro by heart? Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, we're gonna hope I have the intro by heart. All right. Hey guys, welcome to the 23rd episode of Let's Talk Comics, where myself and other co-hosts in the comic book community discuss some of the many facets of the storytelling medium, whether it be stories, characters, adaptations. We pretty much hit it all. Today, we got a couple of fine gentlemen joining us tonight. Of course, the owner of AJ's Comics, my lovely sponsor, Pete. What's going on, man?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I hope everybody in the chat's doing well, considering what comes out tonight into tomorrow. Tyson,
Hey, how you doing?
like comrade from.
Turns out I'm a member of the comic book community. This is crazy.
Yeah, this is crazy. We're doing big things, big stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously, just a preface. Tomorrow, big monumental issue, Detective Comics number 1000 comes out. This is the stellar Steve Rude variant cover, which
Yeah,
I will be
cover's real good.
buying at least 12,000 copies of. This guy can confirm.
Yeah, 12,000. I didn't order that many, but okay.
We'll get there. Usually, before we start these episodes off, we give a poll of the week. Of course, I think the three of us is safe to assume Detective Comics is the big poll this week. I have read the whole thing. I have my opinions. There's some good. There's some bad. I'm not gonna say anything to assuage anybody. Pete, I know you haven't read any of it. What are your expectations going into Detective 1000?
I'm expecting it to be an enjoyable read, but from some things that I've heard, it might not be. But I'm still planning on reading it and hopefully enjoying it.
I enjoyed some stuff, Tyson.
I read two stories. One I really liked, and one I didn't think was quite as good. And my expectations before that were very similar to Action Comics 1000. I expected it just to be good, but nothing in there to blow my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed Action 1000 for the most part, so I had big expectations. I will say, this cover is probably the most beautiful thing I've seen in a long time. It seems like Taylor agrees. He also loves that cover.
The Bruce Timm cover's not bad either.
Yeah, the Jerry Robinson homage.
Yeah, that is a good cover.
Beautiful, like a fucking pizza pie.
If that Steve Rude cover wasn't there, that'd be the one I'd be getting.
Yeah, but
I'm
this
going with
thing
that
is a
It's
must.
pretty good.
30s, yep.
I'm not even a big like art person, and I really like that.
Oh, let's just get that in. Oh, it's shiny. Wow, this is thick. This is so thick. Look at that. Is the camera getting it good? The camera's getting it pretty good.
Yeah.
Look at that, boys and girls. We also have Just a Rican and his comics in the chat saying, "Hey guys, what's going on, brother? Thank you for joining us tonight." Taylor Pector says he loves the Bernie Wrightson cover as well. It is good. I always get a weird vibe when we get like those post-mortem covers.
go.
Thank you.
Yeah, but he probably did the art for it like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
just pulled a stock image out. That's why I was a little disappointed with that. I thought they could have used a lot of different artists
I agree.
that they
Didn't utilize.
You know,
I mean, same with the creative teams in general. There was a lot that, like, I know, like, leading up to this, I was like, I want a Neil Gaiman story. I want that bad. I mean,
Is there a Neil Gaiman story?
well, no, I mean, that's unsolicited, so I can say no. No, there's no Neil Gaiman
okay.
story. However,
I was gonna get myself excited.
Pete informed me last week that if you get the Detective Comics hardcover, there is an exclusive Robert Venditti story contained within that I will be buying the living hell out of. So I'm excited for that. Robert Venditti's great. I trust him to write pretty much anything. So,
Agreed.
yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get into the main topic, and we're going to be approaching the most impactful Batman stories. And so, impactful is a very general term. And so, for me, it was really approaching what it can impact. It impacts the culture, the society, the industry, and maybe just us as individuals. So I wanted to give us a really broad dimension to go through, because I know obviously there's going to be some books that the three of us will undoubtedly mention and laud over. However, I wanted there to be something different. I wanted there to be another element that we each, or I guess another positive that we can each draw from different books, or books that maybe other two of us would not have mentioned or thought of. It just adds another dimension to these stories. Being that you are the host, Pete, in your lovely established Aegis Comics in Colchester, Connecticut, link in the description below to the website and to his Twitter. And as a plug, there's this, you want to grab that sheet over there?
Absolutely.
He's doing this really awesome Avengers Endgame questionnaire. All of my subscribers have an opportunity for one free entry. Otherwise, every entry after that is $1, unless you want to do 6 entries for $5. And you have an option to win a super, super cool Kotobukiya Thanos statue, a cool Infinity Gauntlet light up thing, and a small, shiny Thanos statue. Of course, if you cannot pick it up in store, I will say this now, you must cover the shipping and handling, which I think is a minute cost for one of these super cool prizes. Also, just for the fun of it, I know Tyson got a brief second to look over the questionnaire.
Yeah.
And there's some really great general questions that just kind of give everybody a fair playing field. I like the idea.
I think some of it's pretty obvious and some of it's pretty not obvious.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is a really great idea.
Yeah.
Great way to like build camaraderie.
My customers came up with it, and I said, let's go with it.
Yeah.
So we did.
Yeah, this is awesome. So make sure you guys enter. You can follow both of us on Twitter. You can find those links in the description, where we both have our own individual posts about it. You can inquire on both of them how to get a free entry as a subscriber, and how to continue forth and get more entries to stack your odds and win one of these dope prizes. So,
but you better hurry up, because all the entries got to be in by April 2nd.
Yep. So keep that in mind. Get that to us as soon as possible. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet at one of us, and we will help you out, because I know I'm entering. I know he's entering. You technically already own everything in the store. So
I'm not entering.
Like, woohoo, I got my own Thanos statue.
I already have.
Also 4 others. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Our host, Pete, what is your first impactful Batman story?
Tyson, you want to hand me those comics over there, please?
Absolutely.
Oh, he came prepared.
About props.
Yeah, I read this morning. Yeah, this is impactful to me because it came out when I was 6, and I remember my father getting it for me, the drugstore, and he didn't even get me all of them. He got me this one right there.
Show the good folks of the internet what we're all about.
We're looking at Batman. Was that 294? Yeah, 294. So this is a 4th part of a 4-part series arc, where it's the death of Batman.
One of many.
Yeah, one of many. I don't know
Does
how many
that a lot,
times
doesn't
he did it before that. He does, but he didn't really, obviously. The stories by David Reed, not a name many people know, and it's color. We don't care about the colorist. The art, we care about the colorist, but we don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I know Taylor in the chat lives and swears by Brad Anderson, so we might take a little bit of issue with that.
The artist was by John Calnan and text Blasdell. Again, not well-known names, but I mean the art is fabulous. The story is just a classic Batman story. And it's, like I said, it's a 4-part issue series where different members of his rogues gallery are claiming that they killed the Batman. Catwoman's the first one. Riddler's the second. For some strange reason, Lex Luthor is the third, who's not even a member of Batman's rogue gallery. Oh, it guest starred Superman in that issue. And the 4th one is, of course, the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
And the prosecuting attorney for this whole event was Two-Face. The judge presiding over the whole event was Ra's al Ghul. So they really had the whole gamut of Batman villains running through the story. And it's just impactful to me because, again, I was 6. This specific issue, you can see it there on the cover. Batman has no face. What the heck's going on there? The Joker actually, basically melted his face off after he killed him because he didn't want anybody to recognize him, see who he was. However, he, of course, took photographs of him before he did that so he could see who it was. And, of course, it wasn't Bruce Wayne. But, this is, when you're 6 and you're reading that, you're like, what the? That's pretty freaky. And the art, again, was fabulous. This is a Jim Aparo cover, which is just all-time classic.
Not to mention the 35-cent cover price is pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's not 35 cents anymore. But, I mean, this, even though it's in the 200s, this doesn't run very expensive. You could probably get the whole 4 issues for about $40 total. So, I mean, it's not like it's going to break the bank, but it's not totally inexpensive.
Well, Taylor made a pretty great observation, it seems like, before you mentioned Aparo. He said, the art is very Aparo-esque. That makes sense since Aparo was the house style at the time. Yeah, that's very true. He seemed to be like the industry standard. He's kind of like, I think, what Jim Lee would have been about 7 years ago for DC. 100%. Flamethrower Candle. What is the comic called? I want to pick one up.
It's Batman. Issues 291 through 294.
And do you know the name of the arc by heart?
They didn't. Well, it's called, it's not really called an arc then, but it's Batman died 1977. This is the cover of 291, which is the first issue of it. 1977. So you got 42 years ago. Oh,
I hope that answered your question, Flamethrower Candle. And what are the chances they could pick it up at AJ's Comics?
0. This came from my collection, and I don't have any issues at the store. It says, "Where were you on the night Batman was killed?" So that is possibly the story arc.
In 1977, I wasn't an idea.
I was.
A little bit more than an idea. No, that's awesome. I really like how personal that was, and that's something that neither one of us would have come up with.
That always stuck with me. So you just, especially, again, you're 6, you're reading it, and oh look, the Joker standing over Batman, melting his face off. That's some freaky shit.
That is pretty cool. I like that idea. I mean, see, for me, my story, I think my first story is a little bit bigger. It definitely had some hype around it when it was coming out. Some people really don't like it. But when I started, my first experience into actually reading comics was Final Crisis. And for anybody that's been following me for any, fairly extended period of time, you guys know that, ironically, it didn't scare me. It got me way more interested because I had no idea what the hell was going on. And I really wanted to know. So I was like, this guy also did Batman. And his Batman run led up into this crossover event, Battle for the Cowl, written and drawn by Tony S. Daniel. It was one of the first sets of floppies that I ever owned. I insisted on buying the floppies because that's how you keep the industry alive, folks. Pertaining to my debate the other week. But I love this was like Tony S. Daniel when he was just gunning for it. I think that had some great Tony S. Daniel's greatest visuals. And for me, I didn't think at the time that I could ever love a story where Bruce Wayne wasn't Batman. And the name of the story is exactly how it sounds. It is literally everybody battling for the cowl of Batman. He's dead after Final Crisis. Some people think he's still alive, namely Tim Drake. However, our big bad middle child, Jason Todd, was back with a vengeance, felt that he could take it upon himself to suit up in the cape and cowl, but was setting a bad name for the Caped Crusader. He was mercilessly killing people, and someone had to stop him. And obviously there was a slew of Bat family characters integrated in the story, as well as Batman's allies throughout the years, including obviously Grant Morrison's Knight and Squire. and the remainder of like the standard Bat family. I just thought that this was a really great kind of this was like the end of a coming of age story for Dick Grayson for me. Like he finally realizes that although he might not want Batman, although it might not be the same as Bruce Wayne, he is the only person that can be Batman right now.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've read it. What are your
I
thoughts
did.
on that story? You don't love it?
Didn't love it. No, I didn't love it. It wasn't. I mean, again, yeah. If they came up with somebody other than Dick Grayson, we'd all have been like, "You're insane."
Yeah.
That's who has to take up the cowl. It has to be Dick Grayson. So for me, it was a fait accompli. You already knew that's who it was going to be. So it was like getting there. I mean, it's okay. It wasn't, earth shattering to me. It wasn't a fantastic read. It was more of like, well, we have to do this just basically because somebody's going to have to take over for Batman now that he's stuck in the Stone Age.
See, I mean, one of the things that I liked thinking about it afterward is this really interesting writing style that Tony Daniel brings to it, where he allows the visuals to speak more so than the dialogue. I also really loved it at the beginning of the story, if I remember correctly, was Dick Grayson getting his ass beaten in a warehouse, and the end of the story is him rising up as Batman. And I thought it was super powerful because it really conveys what Dick Grayson is going through emotionally and mentally, obviously physically, throughout this story. And it felt like the logical progression. Have you read Battle for the Cowl?
I've not.
But have you heard of it?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I know you.
That's fair. But yeah, I don't know. Battle for the Cowl for me was just something that really stood out. It made me realize that although Bruce Wayne will forever be the best Batman, no questions asked, I'll fight you about it.
I don't know, man. Black Mirror was pretty good.
I can still really enjoy a Dick Grayson story and Dick Grayson is Batman and what he brings to the cape and cowl. So, and not to mention it really helped to kickstart the Dick Grayson, Grant Morrison Batman run. Which was phenomenal. That was that was one of my earliest Batman stories. And I really, really dug it. Again, Tony S. Daniel was doing some of his best stuff. And Taylor Pector in the chat says, I know a lot of people are very mixed on Tony S. Daniel as a writer. Yeah, I don't blame him. He's written some stuff that I thoroughly enjoy, including Battle for the Cowl. I also really enjoyed the beginning of his New 52 Detective Comics run.
Oh, Detective Comics #1 was like hands down
best thing he's ever
written.
Single
best issue. Yeah. But I mean, #1 across the line, that was the best book.
Yeah.
That issue. Anything after that, no. But that issue,
I liked the story. I liked the story. And it set the precedent for Death of the Family.
Oh, without a doubt.
So that was
I remember that. I read that, yeah. Yeah. That was good.
So I enjoyed that. Again, Taylor does bring up a really good point. Some people are wishy-washy. However, I owe him in part for getting me, for being a big contributor, getting me into comics. So, I like him for the most part. Tyson, what is your first story on the list?
All right. So I have a very different introduction to comics than you two do. The first real comic I ever read was Batman Year One, which is not the one I want to talk about. Okay. But I read it 15 or so and was not blown away by it. It was fine. It was cool. I had no qualms with it, but also wasn't
sure
blown away. And the next one I read was The Dark Knight Returns, and it absolutely blew my mind in every way. And that's what I want to talk about. I had never, because I always kind of wanted to get into comics. I had liked Batman as a kid, and one of my stories that was similar to your guys is the Batman Adventures, which is a thing they did in like the early 2000s. It was like based on the animated series, and I loved those. But I always wanted to get back into Batman. But I never imagined that it could have had this kind of depth and this kind of emotional impact at all. Specifically, do you guys remember the scene? It's one page where it's like a woman is on the subway and she's thinking about her kids and the fact that she got a good tip so she can buy her kids a watercolor set. Yeah. And then one of the mutants steals her purse and puts a bomb in it, and it just cuts to the news thing. I didn't realize you could do something with that with comics, and it completely blew my mind.
Yeah.
But I just remember sitting there thinking this is amazing. I didn't know you could do something this good with words and pictures. And I think that's kind of the way a lot of people felt. That after that, I mean, it's a big time for comics. It's around the same time Watchmen came out and Sandman. But after that, you see Batman '89. After that, you see kind of an explosion of things. So yeah, that's my.
Well, what I mean, like what 6 or 7 years later, the animated series comes out.
Yep.
So
it's a big. I think I think that's the time people start taking things seriously.
Especially Batman. I mean, that was the book where I know like you were around for it, but that was the book where at least that's how it's recorded in history.
Definitely.
That people took Batman seriously, and that's when Batman started taking over the pop culture landscape versus like the Spider-Mans and the Supermans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when you're talking about Dark Knight Returns, without a doubt, no question. Yeah,
it's still one of my favorite top 3 comics of all time.
Comics weren't as serious until that one and Watchmen came out. They became ingrained in culture at that point. Yeah. They were like all of a sudden people started taking them seriously, whereas before they were just kid books.
Yeah.
Something that you get your kid, and it's a throwaway item.
And for you, because like you were actually like around reading comics when Dark Knight Returns came out, what was that like? For the industry?
Do you remember the first time you read Dark Knight Returns?
Yeah. See, that's right around when I first started getting into comics as a collector when that came out. Prior to that, again, it was my father was giving me comics when I was sick and not going to church. He'd stop at the drugstore and buy them for me. But when I was 15, then I started going to the local comic book shop and picking some up. Crisis on Infinite Earths was coming out, and I had some friends in school, and they brought copies in, and I was like, oh, these are freaking great. I got to read these. I got to go to the store and get some of these myself. And that was right at the time Dark Knight Returns was coming out, and Batman was always my favorite, even when I wasn't really reading comics. Batman was the one.
Seems pretty consistent.
Yeah. And when I went to the comic book store, 1 and 2 were already out, and they were on, I think they were on third printings. So I got third printings of 1 and 2. And then, of course, 3 and 4 were ridiculously delayed. So when they finally came out, I was able to jump on the first printings of those. But yeah, the story is like, it's like nothing that you had read at all ever up to that point.
Especially for superheroes.
Yeah. There's just there's no describing it. I went back after the fact, even though Watchmen was coming out synonymously, same time, but I went back after the fact because I hadn't gotten into Watchmen right away, but I had heard everything about it. So I was like, well, we're gonna have to go see what this is. And my local comic shop had all of the issues for purchase, back issue catalog. So it wasn't, maybe, I think he was only doing like 25 or 50 cents over cover price for most of the books. So I was able to snag them up pretty cheap. And again, you read that, and it's those 2 books. There's no comparison to anything else up to that point. Nothing in the market. Now, there's been stuff since then, and there's been stuff that they write it just for shock value. These were written for a much more meaningful purpose than just like, oh, let me shock you.
Well, that's what I thought about it, because when I read it, I kind of expected the dark aspects of it. Like I knew going into that it was like, oh, like Frank Miller went real edgy with this one. Like I knew that, but I didn't know how affecting it is.
Yeah.
Like it's insanely like it touches you.
And like on top of the edge too, there was just like this sharp element of social politics.
Well,
in there.
That's what I was gonna bring that too. Like, man, Frank Miller had some problems with Reagan.
Yeah. And it's
not screwing around.
It's funny too, because a lot, like, that and Watchmen, 2 of the biggest comic books of all time, loved by everybody. Very liberal.
Very
liberal. And that's speaking as a conservative, very liberal. And I love them both. But the crazy thing about Dark Knight Returns is it really pushed boundaries, not only for the character of Batman, but for like the other stable of cast. I mean, you have Green Arrow being this one-armed outlaw, Superman essentially being the government's puppet.
That's
that was really huge because and essentially,
how about the Joker like capturing Catwoman and dressing her up like Wonder Woman?
Yeah,
and just like that was just You know.
It was nuts. And what's crazy is just everything that Miller was able to accomplish. He not only rebuilt the DC universe in his own image, but like,
and then he destroyed it with
he
DK2.
And then
But that's another
DK3.
story.
Yeah.
But like Dark Knight Returns as a work is obviously so seminal for a reason. And you know what I love? That as much as I think that Batman is the pinnacle of humanity and this, that, and the other thing, Miller was not afraid to show Batman's mental illness.
Well, yeah, like you don't like Batman's not a fantastic person in this.
No,
like he's not like
he's
not. It's not great.
It's literally it's an obsession, and I really love that dynamic because obviously the first when he comes out as Batman, the first villain he deals with is Two-Face.
Yeah,
and I think that is this really great parallel because the beginning of the book is him dealing with his own. With Batman, with the voice, with the Batman within him, and I love that internal struggle because he needs Batman more than Batman needs Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's something really incredible about it, and I don't think anything that like any one of us could really say could do that book justice with how great the storytelling is and the characterization is. What's really interesting for me was the first time. I don't know if I ever told you guys. First time I ever read Dark Knight Returns, I had a really hard time getting through Frank Miller's art. Really hard time.
Yeah, it's not great.
Because
it's
if you think about like my background at that point in Batman, I had seen J.H. Williams Batman, I had seen Greg Capullo Batman, I had seen Jim Lee Batman, I had seen Tony Daniel Batman, and then I get to Frank Miller that's really, really stylized, very, I don't want to say haphazard with the line.
It's gross looking.
Well, I don't want to, it's a little bit grotesque.
Sort of on purpose.
When I grew up, I had Jim Aparo Batman. I mean, that's a classic Batman. That's as classic a Batman as Neil Adams Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Aparo, there's none better. I'd put him head and shoulders above any other Batman artist. I think he was fantastic. Classic, just pure and true and just natural Batman artist, and all the ancillary characters as well. I mean, it was top notch. So yeah, when I read Frank Miller's Batman, it was like, wow, this isn't anything like I've ever seen before. Forget about, reading it for the words and the story, the art as well. But even though it's different, I appreciated it just the same.
I think it serves its purpose.
Yeah, without a doubt. And some of the splash pages that he has in there are utterly fantastic.
I mean, the compositions that Frank Miller uses in that book are so iconic for a reason. I mean, I have like 3 shirts alone with like just Dark Knight Returns panels come to life.
I mean, in so much of the Batman vs Superman movie.
Oh,
the best parts of that movie are just direct quoting
freeze frames, literal freeze frames from that book.
Yeah,
they're so striking and powerful, and I think that is also that goes in hand with the really striking writing. And I love that Frank Miller really wasn't afraid to assert like Bruce Wayne's dominance when he's kind of out of options because he's older, and that like you see that crack a little bit when he's fighting the leader of the mutants, and he needs to do what he has to do. He's obviously not a killer,
right?
But like he
shoots a guy. He shoots a guy in the beginning.
He's not afraid to rough somebody up.
Yeah. And throwing batarangs right in the eye.
Oh yeah. I mean, like
I mean, that's the best Joker death, right? Do we have a better Joker death?
No.
I don't want to spoil it, but is there?
How could you spoil a book that's like 30 years old?
I don't know. Some guy might be reading it for the first time. I don't know, but still, like, I think that might be the best Joker death.
No, undoubtedly. Well, it is the best death of the Batman and Joker dynamic, by far. Far.
Yeah.
It is the best death of their romance.
Well, I just love the idea of Batman couldn't kill him. Joker kills himself, so everybody else thinks Batman did.
Well, Batman lost. That's the thing. Batman lost.
I mean, yeah, but I'm just the way that is done out is
they're in
brilliant.
a tunnel of love, and it's just the two of them.
Yeah. Well,
Well, there's just like
Joker just decides to
twist his own. Like it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's real good.
It's insane.
It's real good.
I mean,
I have a question for you. Because that's the first time I know of that we ever questioned Batman's actions. And to your memory, is that the same thing? Because I mean, you have more experience than that.
Yeah, just say I'm older. Yeah. No. Yeah, of course. like I said, something like that's never really been done to my memory. It might have been touched on in some comic that I hadn't read, but from what I can remember, no, it was never even touched upon in comics up to that point, in any comic, let alone for Batman.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember some of the great Batman stories up to that point. The Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers run,
Laughing
and Detective.
Fish.
Oh, the Laughing Fish is classic. It's absolutely.
That was Englehart, wasn't it?
Yeah, he wrote it, and Marshall Rogers drew it.
Right.
Yeah, that was classic. But nothing to like what you're saying, Tyson. That just even in great story arcs like that, that's not touched.
Well, I mean, mentioned. There's a reason that Dark Knight Returns is considered the most popular and the biggest superhero comic of all time. I don't think there's any questioning it.
Watchmen might be more.
So, Watchmen, I think, is something in of itself. But I mean, like,
definitely canon, or that's not canon, but mainline superhero, like
yes,
a hero you see everywhere,
right? Yeah, with pre-existing icons.
Yeah.
We also have in the chat Smoky Dude saying, "Hey everybody, what's going on, man? Glad to see, better late than never," as they always say. He says
he's kind of right about Frank Miller's art, though.
Yeah, he says Batman's a flat-out lunatic, and that Frank's art is ass.
Not wrong.
I don't think it was ass because I think it accomplished what it needed to accomplish. Once you really get it, because
I will say I think that in his art in Dark Knight Returns fits, but his art in Sin City is actually like amazing. I would say his art in Sin City is actually is downright beautiful.
Well, his art is very purposeful. He's a very purposeful artist. He's not like a Gary Frank that can literally draw anything and have it be goddamn stunning. But his art has a purpose. It's very stylistic. It's very gritty. The lines feel like they're placed very haphazardly, but it just provides this really.
I mean, it's brutish.
It's brutish. That's perfect.
It when you see the Batman you see on the page perfectly fits the Batman that is in the dialogue ideology,
right, and in the internal monologue.
Yeah, it perfectly fits. I mean, the Superman is the same. Like Superman is this big blue Boy Scout, literally.
Yeah, it's biggest Jared Crow possible.
Well, we'll see his Superman Year One coming up in a couple months.
Is that real?
Yeah,
that's
him and John Romita Jr.
This is how I find out about comics.
Yep. Frank Miller writing it, John Romita Jr. drawing it.
No. I'm writing that. I'm reading that.
You're writing it?
I'm reading that. Yeah, I'm definitely reading that. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, it's the book is an iconic book for a reason.
Yeah.
And like on the topic of Batman being insane, yes, that's the point. Yeah, I think the point that Frank Miller tries to make is that anybody who can run around in a costume and do what they do is insane. But it depends on what your motives are and what really keeps you going. Unfortunately, yeah, Batman was a lunatic.
Especially when you have no powers to back him up.
Right.
Just,
And like, question, while we're on the topic, what was that like? Well, you said you were 15, 16 when it came out. What was that like when you read the issue where Batman beat Superman?
It's classic, because I always wanted, Batman's my favorite. So it's like,
that was a nice little smile. You
gave
me. I really appreciate that.
It was genuine.
I love it. I mean, it was everything that you wanted.
I mean, I think there's two big stories that cement the fact that Batman can beat anybody. One is Tower of Babel. I don't know how you want to however you want to pronounce it. And then the other is
I'd also argue that Endgame, Scott Snyder's Endgame, the beginning of it.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, he thoroughly trounces the Justice League.
Same
but
type of deal.
But it hasn't reached that level of iconicism yet. So I see.
I just mean
why you'd go where you go. I mean, yeah. I mean, that was like when I first started reading Batman, my argument was like Batman beats everybody, no problem, no questions asked. I was that guy.
I'm still that guy.
And then I got to I mean, I still am, but now I can present a really good argument.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think with time.
Batman.
Well, yeah, sure.
That's a fair argument.
Give him time.
But like I was saying, that was just incredible. And the fact that like Frank Miller did it in a way to make it believable, and it was almost a taunt, right? Like he didn't need to use the Green Arrow. He did it for the Green Arrow's own pride. Right. And like that, there's something about that dialogue when he's with Clark.
Oh, yeah.
And he's holding him at his freaking boot. And he says, it's like, it could have been like a different binding agent, a stronger mix, like, I want you to remember the face of in all your days to come and all your darkest hours, I want you to remember the face of the one man who beat you.
Yeah.
Oh,
real good. just real good.
Oh, as a Bat fan.
And that art in particular of the boot going into Superman's chin and
It's
just a little bit of blood is it's great.
Oh my
It's great.
God, it's iconic.
It's fantastic.
I mean, we could wax Dark Knight
I'm sure we could talk
for the rest of the night.
For hours.
But in the chat, Taylor Pector, Sin City, the book where Frank Miller started going insane.
And for the better. Very much for the better. I'll defend that one.
Until you read All-Star Batman and Robin and Dark Knight Strikes Again.
I try my best not to read bad comics. I guess that's the benefit of hindsight. I don't really read new things as they come out. I just read.
Yeah, unless I recommend them, and they're usually good.
And then I But like
All-Star Batman and Robin was not a bad read. It was just a disappointment.
Well, I feel like art helps that.
Jim Lee's art
was someone who has not read it. I feel like I could put up with a lot.
And that was
for Jim Lee's art.
And that was Jim Lee when he was like he's still.
That art is great. I haven't read the book, but I've seen the art in that book.
Black Canary.
Dude, it's like I own the single issues, boy.
Yeah. I'm sure you do.
The single issues.
I got the single issues in the Absolute.
I definitely ain't spending money on the Absolute. I love you and I love your store. I'm not buying the Absolute. I'll buy other things.
Have I opened it yet? No.
Is it still in the shrink wrap? Maybe.
Still in the shrink wrap. Yeah.
Silver Batman Ranger, Team Batman. Agreed. I think all three of us agree. Good.
No, I'm all in Superman. That is. I was lying before.
I don't know why I invited you here. Lying now. Second Street Marvel. What's up, everybody? Sorry I made it late. Hey, man. Better late than never. Glad you're joining us tonight. Big moves going on tonight for the comic book industry. Sumoki Dude, also, Batman beating Superman is one of the best moments in Batman's history. I think it's one of the best moments in mainstream comics history in general. No questions asked.
I will say yes, but I think even in that book, I like the moment where he beats the mutant better.
Oh, yeah. But
because
it's the iconicism of Batman and Superman.
That is very true. That is very true. But I think
I was not happy. I remember reading that, and I was just like, I was not happy with the whole mutant. I was like,
well, I think it's supposed to make you not feel happy, right? It's supposed to.
Obviously, but I mean, I wasn't like, I'm like, can we just get past this and get on to I think Joker? Let's get on to him going as Superman. The mutants.
I know.
I think the mutants are there to show that he's out of his element.
Yeah.
He can fight the old villains all day. They're just like all the old guys. I think the villains represent some kind of new element that it's.
And it was also
too edgy for him.
Making him realize that there's a reason Batman worked, and he needs to go back to what worked, and that was being the surgeon, being smart, not just being the brute. After all that time of not being Batman, I feel like there was something that culminated in his head that told him that just by being Batman, by putting on the cape and cowl, he was unstoppable. And that wasn't the case. That wasn't what made Batman Batman.
Which is a theme that we see in Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, yeah.
And a theme, I think, in Batman vs. Superman. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I think that's a theme, right? Or is it not? I could be lying. I'm gonna be lying. I had another point to make, but I forget what it was.
Yeah. So
I have a small point, but Frank Miller just invented his own slang for the book, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. Which is fantastic. You read the book and you're like, I kind of get it, but I don't like.
Yeah, it's mostly all the mutant language.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading.
I mean, me reading this is like, is this how people talked in the 80s? Like.
No.
It is great.
No, yeah, but I mean, we could
hashtag balls nasty. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Taylor Pector, All-Star Batman and Robin is pretty much a Sin City Batman comic.
I would say that Sin City is more of an Elseworlds Gotham story that Batman isn't in.
Yeah.
I would say the reverse of that. But yeah, I agree with your general point.
Yeah. So we've gotten a lot in about Dark Knight Returns. I'm sure we could go on for the rest of this episode talking about Dark Knight Returns, but we got some books to go through.
Definitely.
Pete, you're up next on the rotation. What is your next story?
Gee, let's see. We talked about that and I had something. There were several somethings. I mean, I had a couple of really good ones.
Spawn Batman
10
crossover.
Nights of the Beast? No, not Spawn Batman crossover. 10 Nights of the Beast was a damn good story. I liked Death in the Family. Or Death in the Family. The one that Jim Starlin did. I know that you and I talked about it. And you thought the dialogue was dated.
Which that's a problem for Trevor.
That's not a problem for me, though, because the story is what really needs to hold up. The dialogue is, you go back and you read Golden Age comics and you read Silver Age comics, that dialogue is so dated it's not even funny.
But there's
Stark Stan Lee fan, I agree with you.
I don't know, because
without a doubt, and you read some of Jack Kirby's stuff from the 70s, you start reading his Fourth World stuff, and you're like,
there's just something different,
Still like it a lot though.
right, exactly.
I bought what is it? That thing right over there, the Detective Comics 80 Years of Batman. It's over there. It's fantastic. I was reading Detective 27, which is contained like which is bound in this book. And I was like, I could really embrace this dialogue because it is so much a product of the time. But there's something specifically I think about like 70s to 80s dialogue that's just like
Well, I find, because I mean, I jumped in all the way. I started at issue 1 of Stan Lee's Fantastic Four, and I found that 10 issues in, once you let it happen, you're fine. Like once you let it in, and you're just in the world, I'm fine.
You have to immerse
I'm good.
yourself into it and just
It's clobbering time, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm
It's
here.
clobbering time.
I'm here. Yeah, Yancey Street.
Yeah, see, Taylor Pector brings
Great
up
art, Mark.
a great story, which is definitely in my top 10 Batman stories of all time, and that's No Man's Land. He said it's a personal favorite of his. Yeah, I feel like if you skim out the fat, because there's a lot of fat.
There's a lot of fat.
But the main story is absolutely fantastic. I know I was just talking to Taylor a little while ago because they have No Man's Land on the DC Universe app, and I was just enjoying the shit out of it on my 50-inch TV. But that story is phenomenal. Obviously, it like laid the groundwork for this really poor season of Gotham, the final season of Gotham.
Ooh, that seems like a knockoff Dark Knight Rises.
They're butchering the out of it. No Man's Land was fantastic. It was honestly one of the things that I got to later in like me reading Batman, and there's something very all-encompassing, and I felt like every cast member of the Bat family was important throughout that issue, except for Spoiler. Because Spoiler's never important.
No.
Unless you're James Tynion. But yeah, no, I mean, No Man's Land I thought was great. And
Boy, there you go. Long Halloween, without a doubt.
Oh,
Long
yeah.
Halloween.
We were going to get to that one, right?
Oh, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I know.
Was one of the ones
That is
was
a good-
definitely on my mind.
That's
Not
my
so
personal,
much
too.
Dark Victory, but Long Halloween.
Whoa.
There's-
Dark
whoa,
Victory's a
whoa.
nice book. It's a nice sequel.
I've had conversations about which one is
but
better.
Long Halloween was just
I think together,
Epic.
just in tandem.
Oh, I love Long Halloween. It's my personal 2 of Batman stories, but the art of Dark Victory is amazing.
Oh,
Like
yeah, the color palette.
the adding in the reds and the oranges, it creates a whole other thing. I love it.
I mean, they're both so phenomenal.
They're both great.
I mean, back in my early, my
You
earliest
got the
of
floppies for the Long Halloween. Those are the ones.
dude, the prestige format,
yeah,
so good.
yeah, they are
So good.
great.
No, but like back in my early comic book days, there was a reason that both Dark Victory and Long Halloween were on my like top 5 for new Batman readers list. And obviously because one is the direct sequel to the other.
Yep.
But like there is something so obviously Batman about it, but like they are so quintessential to the character.
I would say Long Halloween is the quintessential Batman story.
it is up there.
I think
It is
it
certainly
is
up
the
there.
quintessential Batman story.
I mean, you get, and it's something. The beautiful thing about Long Halloween is incredibly accessible to new Batman readers because you get a taste for. I mean,
much.
it takes place, I believe, in Batman's 2nd year or 3rd year.
Yeah, I think it was early on.
But B, you get Batman's entire rogues gallery, which is awesome. You get Tim Sale's really great stylized art when he was at his best.
Although that was something I had to work myself into, but
I mean, like it just works.
It's an
It's
adjustment.
an acquired taste.
For me, ironically, Frank Miller was more of an acquired taste than Tim Sale.
Oh, that's not wrong at all.
Tim Sale, I love. Let's just give Tim Sale a little bit of love here.
Oh,
I love the thin lines, but the really heavy, like blocked out blacks.
Yeah,
like, they just like this shadowy. I frankly love Batman in Tim Sale's art more when he's covered in shadow than when like you get a full body image.
because he's a little too muscly.
Well, it's like a little bit too muscle. I think it's cool because it adds to like the mythic quality of Batman.
Yeah,
but like there's just something so cool and like in the atmosphere of a fully shadowed out Tim Sale Batman written by like the guy of comic book whodunits, Jeff Loeb. You know what I mean? Like just the story was awesome. And I think that like when I first read Long Halloween, I'm not even going to call it a spoiler, but once you realize that there are 3 holiday killers, you're like, holy shit.
Although I will say, I think that is a weakness of the story overall. The ending is like, who did it? I don't know. But
I like that.
It's whoever you want.
I mean, frankly, I have a.
I think you could argue that that's a weakness.
I mean,
I don't really care.
I have a tattoo dedicated to that last scene, like with the I believe in Harvey Dent with Gilda.
It's true.
I mean, like it is easily the most commonly referred to origin of Two-Face. It is in my opinion.
Wait, was that the first time we saw that? I assume that was the actual origin of Two-Face.
No, it was kind of like rehashed, you know, like more modernized. But it added a lot to the character. I loved his interactions with the cast. for me, the strength is in the internal monologue. Jeff Loeb does a great Batman internal monologue, one of the best, in fact, if not the best. It is just so analytical and so precise.
And Batman's cape is so long.
It's
I
so
love
long.
it. It's so long. You almost never see the end of Batman's cape in that.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. No, and Taylor Pechter brings up an awesome point. It's stronger than Hush's ending.
Oh, much stronger.
Much
no arguments
Yes,
here.
Hush is a very weak ending.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. Hush is absolutely phenomenal until it ends.
Yep.
Like, I mean, it is an impactful Batman story, so I feel like it has a place, you know, because that was Jim Lee's big Batman work coming to DC.
The artist,
it's fantastic.
Like, he spares no detail. Literally, the boot tread is there, boys.
Right there.
But the story's great. I mean, like, you open up and it's just like a whacked out Killer Croc and Batman beating some ass. You get to see Batman fight Superman.
Seen a better Killer Croc.
Yeah.
No,
never.
I mean, you get to see Batman fight Superman. I mean, just the dynamic between Thomas Elliott and Bruce Wayne, and then the mystery. Not to mention, that was right before Jason Todd actually came back, and it was before it was actually an idea, and they retconned like that entire experience, and I think elevated it for me.
Yeah.
That like there was the swap out between Clayface and Jason Todd.
Yeah.
I know I'm kind of like rambling.
Judd
so
Winnick was the one that sat there and basically said, "No, it needed to be Jason Todd. What the hell?"
Absolutely.
And so that's why he went back and wrote that after the fact and brought back the Red Hood.
Yeah, but I mean the story.
That was a cop out.
The ride was great. Yeah. I mean, arguably, arguably the journey.
This the other day, like 9 out of 10 issues was a pretty good book. All right, not 10 or 12.
Phenomenal.
It was 12 issues.
12 issues.
Yeah, but 11 out of 12. Like,
I mean, it's phenomenal. The ride was absolutely phenomenal. It just sucks that the ending was left so ambiguous because, like, I mean, the end of Long Halloween was left ambiguous, but this was like the bad guy straight up gets away.
But like Long Halloween is kind of like charming.
And is Hush not the worst Batman villain ever?
I don't think so.
That's a guy who's got a lot of villains. Like, I don't know if I can definitely argue one, but I could go and find a worse one.
Okay, fine. Yeah, sure.
I could go and find
is pretty bad.
I'm going to tell you a secret. I kind of like Hush.
I think he's a good villain. I don't think
Hush blows.
I don't know. I like the idea of Hush. I like how intelligent Jeff Loeb writes him. I mean, like, come on, you fake your own death because you know it's going to get a rise out of him. Like, that was absolutely nuts. But yeah, no, I mean, Hush definitely has a place in there. It's, I mean, when you recommend a Batman story,
I would, if someone said like, how should I get back into comics? Hush should be up there.
Hey guys.
Yeah, we're doing it, but we got peeps coming in the store. I guess we'll have to cut this conversation short.
There's Jordan.
There's Dog.
Hey,
Jordan.
Hey, baby.
There's a dog.
That means Bob's here.
First appearance of a dog on the channel. But yeah, this was a brief little conversation about some pretty impactful Batman stories throughout the decades. So, thank you guys for taking part, having a conversation, getting into Batman stories that both impacted us, the culture, and the industry.
Without a doubt.
Thank you to everybody who was watching this live. I really appreciate you guys joining in on the chat, giving your input. It definitely helped strengthen the conversation. This is going to be phenomenal, like first time. I don't know if I've ever been under an hour on one of these things, but this is great. If you guys enjoyed, please make sure to like this video, subscribe down to the channel. Check out AJ's Comics website in the description below, as well as their Twitter to keep updated on this really, really cool Avengers Endgame questionnaire. And of course,
make sure you either come down to the store or tweet us so you can get your one free entry. Make sure you do it. Get it back to us by next Tuesday.
Makes good points. And where can the good folks find you out in the streets of Colchester?
167 Lebanon Ave.
Otherwise, if you guys are
otherwise you might find me at McDonald's every so often or Dunkin' Donuts or something like that.
If you guys are looking for a great place to pull your comics, these guys do this awesome online subscription service. So you can do that. You get 10% off all your comics. If you wait for your shipment to get past, what is it, $100? It's free shipping. So make sure to go check them out. If you enjoyed this, again, please make sure to show your love to AJ's Comics.
If you really love your books and you want to get more than $300 worth of books a month, you can get 20% off.
There you go. We're saving money.
I don't think I like any books that much.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a college student.
Thanks,
I don't think I like anything.
Way to go.
Way to go. Thanks again. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.